Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the fascinating mystery of a football fan who somehow managed to captivate the entire world by doing absolutely nothing. Seriously, imagine being in a roaring stadium, right? The energy is electric, your team is playing their hearts out, and you just stand there, completely still. Today, we're unpacking the story of Michel Nkuka Mboladinga, known to millions as Lumumba Vea, and we're going to uncover exactly how his motionless tribute connects modern national pride with one of Africa's most significant historical figures.
So, picture your typical football fan, especially at these massive, high-stakes tournaments. You've got painted faces, waving flags, and just absolute chaos in the stands when a goal goes in. But Lumumba Vea? He does something totally different. While fans all around him at the Africa Cup of Nations and during the Democratic Republic of Congo's 2026 World Cup qualifiers are dancing and cheering, Michel shows up dressed sharply in his nation's colors, climbs up onto a platform, raises one arm high into the air, and just freezes for the entire match. Whether his team is winning, losing, or scoring the absolute goal of the century, he never breaks his pose. The discipline is honestly just astonishing.
As you can probably guess, this kind of unprecedented behavior caught the attention of the camera crews pretty fast. During the Africa Cup of Nations, broadcasts kept cutting back to him. Social media went wild, and global audiences were just completely bewildered. Everyone was asking the same things. Who is the statue man? And why on earth does he refuse to celebrate even the best moments of the game? By the time he traveled to the World Cup qualifiers, millions knew his face. Players admired him, and fans were constantly stopping to take photos with the mysterious, motionless supporter.
Well, let's get right into it, because the truth is, this viral pose wasn't created for sporting events at all. It wasn't just some quirky internet gimmick to get on TV. It was actually created to honor a man who gave everything for his country. So, to really understand Lumumba Vea and the deep meaning behind that stillness, we have to look way past the football pitch and turn the pages back into the history of the Congo.
Chapter 2, The Legacy of Patrice Lumumba.
All right, to get why this living statue matters so much, we need a quick history rewind to 1960s Congo, specifically looking at the nation's first democratically elected prime minister, Patrice Lumumba. Now, the history here moves incredibly fast. We're talking about a transition from over 70 years of Belgian colonial rule to a very sudden, brief moment of independence on June 30, 1960. But that was almost immediately followed by a devastating political upheaval known as the Congo Crisis, which tragically culminated in Lumumba's shocking assassination in January 1961, literally just months after he took office.
To really set the stage for why Lumumba's election was such a big deal, we have to look at what was happening during those decades of colonial rule. The Congolese people lived under a brutal system that extracted just enormous wealth from the land. We're talking highly valuable global resources here: rubber, copper, diamonds, gold. And all this vast wealth was extracted primarily for Belgium's benefit, while the local Congolese people were entirely excluded from holding political power, governing their own country, or even seeing the fruits of their own labor.
So, when Patrice Lumumba gets elected, he represents this profound, monumental hope. He wasn't just interested in a symbolic independence, he demanded the real thing. He envisioned a nation where the Congolese controlled their own natural resources, where the different ethnic groups were united, and where the country could govern itself completely free from foreign interference. At the very core of it all, he believed every single Congolese person deserved dignity. And that brings us to Independence Day itself, which turned into the ultimate clash of perspectives. On June 30, 1960, the expectation was pretty traditional. The Belgian king praised Belgium's colonial rule and fully expected the Congolese leaders to just smile, nod, and say thank you. But the reality? It was something else entirely. Patrice Lumumba stood before the world and delivered a shocking, absolutely electrifying speech that laid out the severe realities of colonial rule, explicitly calling out the forced labor, the humiliation, and the violence.
That speech electrified so many Africans because it openly challenged the narrative that colonial rule had been some kind of gift. But, as you might expect, it also deeply alarmed powerful interests, both at home and abroad. Political instability quickly gripped the country, which ultimately led to his removal from power and his tragic death by January 1961. But here's the thing, in death, his legacy only grew. He became this massive pan-African symbol of sovereignty, of resistance against colonialism, and of the unwavering belief that African nations absolutely must control their own destinies.
Chapter 3. Recreating the Monument.
Okay, so how does a prime minister from the 1960s inspire a viral football fan today? It all comes down to how Lumumba is remembered visually.
If you travel across the Democratic Republic of Congo, you'll find statues depicting him standing proudly upright, with one arm raised high. It's not just a random stance, right? It's a powerful, deliberate symbol of determination, strong leadership, hope, and a nation that is actively looking toward its future.
Which brings us right back to our silent football fan in the stands. Lumumba Vea isn't just pretending to be some generic statue for a laugh. He is meticulously recreating this specific monument. By perfectly copying that historic pose right in the middle of a roaring, chaotic football stadium, he's literally serving as a living monument. He's making sure that the millions of people watching on TV remember that Congo's history definitely didn't start with sports.
The really crucial takeaway here is that his silent tribute bridges a massive gap. He's using the massive, global stage of football to connect today's national team directly with the country's long, hard-fought struggle for freedom and self-determination. He's even said it himself, his main goal is to make sure younger generations remember the exact values Patrice Lumumba stood for. It just goes to show that national pride can be deeply rooted in history, way beyond just winning or losing a 90-minute match.
And honestly, this perfectly explains why he refuses to dance, chant, or celebrate goals, no matter how crazy the game gets. To him, football is a stage where millions of eyes are watching. And while everyone else is completely lost in celebrating the present moment, he's using his platform to remind a celebrating world that history shouldn't be forgotten. It's a stark reminder that freedom was never free.
Chapter 4. The Final Whistle.
So let's look at how this all builds into one of the most powerful messages we've seen in modern sports. Today, millions of people might know Michel simply as the guy who never moves. But the real story isn't just about standing still. It's about his staunch refusal to let history just move on without remembering those who sacrificed absolutely everything for an independent, united Congo.
You know, whether you agree with every single aspect of Lumumba's politics or not, his life undeniably remains one of the most debated and influential stories in all of modern African history. And understanding that leaves us with a pretty profound realization about how we honor our past on the world stage.
Because when the whole world around you is shouting and clapping and cheering, sometimes the absolute loudest, most impactful statement you can make is delivered in complete silence. His unyielding discipline in those stands really makes you stop and wonder, what history are we forgetting while we're all busy cheering? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep your curiosity alive, and I'll catch you next time.